Hello and welcome to the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his friends. It's been an interesting day, but it's 4:30 on a Monday and we're about to record for you guys. We'll go live on Friday. The agenda begins with, isn't Goodwood great? And why we want to celebrate that. And also, Chris Cooper, our roving correspondent, has been visiting a show of a different type. So we'll start off by a little celebration of Goodwood and why we think it is the de facto British motor show, because it is. So Chris Cooper and Neil Clifford both went to Goodwood. Who would like to talk about Goodwood first?
You can go first.
There you go.
I've just realised I've got the wrong agenda.
This is brilliant. 1 minute.
We're going to be good. We're going to be good. I will start. Look, it's got to be, not as if I go to any other ones. We'll be fine, Chris.
Keep going.
You're clever.
Keep going.
We'll mash them together. Even though I don't go to any other car shows in the world, this has got to be the best one, isn't it? In terms of new cars.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was bloody hot, but our good pal, Lord March, he definitely, as the weatherman, looking down on him positively, because it's always lovely weather. I was very fortunate. I must make this declaration that I was invited by Bentley, mainly because I helped them with some shoes, actually. But so I was looked after even more in air-conditioned luxury and all that sort of stuff. But nevertheless, even though I had sort of a slightly posher version than what I'm normally used to, it's just, you could spend 2 or 3 days there. I mean, I don't like really spending 2 or 3 days anywhere, and that includes holiday. But actually, there's so much to see. All brands put such a lot of investment in. Seeing these F1 legends, whether it be, Nigel was the highlight for me. But you see all these wonderful drivers, all these wonderful cars, the happiness. I mean, the car, if anyone thinks the car is dead, go to Goodwood Festival of Speed.
I agree with
200,000
that.
or 300,000 people every day for 4 days, just taking great pleasure in the motor car. So I think we have to celebrate it. We have to tip our hats really to all the team at Goodwood, because that is one hell of a bit of organisation to make sure that all works smoothly. And from what I can see, everyone had a wonderful time. So I think hats off. And I can't imagine there's anywhere like it in the world demonstrating new cars in the best possible way that they do.
Yes, I think before we move to Mr. Cooper, it's not the de facto British motor show. It's the only motor show left. Detroit's gone. Geneva's gone.
Yeah.
I know they have them in China, but I think those are more one-sided. So, Chris Cooper, thoughts?
So I think Neil is right. To see everything that you'd want to see, not to miss anything going up the hill, and to see everything in all of the paddocks and all of the stands. I went to see our lovely friends at K&N. They had a stand, and I waved at them and we took some photographs, and they were very excited and selling lots of K&N filters. And I noticed that the Supercat thing that one of my chums is involved in, the XJS duper thing, also had K&N air filters, which I thought was quite exciting.
Well, we like it even more now.
Yeah, so that was quite cool. I think you do need to spend a couple of days there. I'm going to just sound just a note of thoughtfulness just for a moment. And I sort of did sense that, I mean, the heat this year was very, very hot. There's been hot lots of things this year, this summer.
It was hot.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
If you don't live in the UK, you won't quite realise sort of quite how unusual and bewildering it's been for us to have such a hot summer, well over 30 degrees, which for us is just too hot, really. So bit of caution, what I'm going to say, because it was very, very hot. It's got quite crowded.
It was busy.
It's got very crowded. And if you don't have a grandstand ticket, which is extra, and there aren't thousands of spaces available in grandstand, I got the sense that some felt actually it's got a bit frustrating because it's just so busy, so many people, you can't necessarily see stuff going up the hill. and getting back. I mean, we were there on the Sunday, and I had a number of guests there. We had a table in one of the hospitality suites near Molecombe Corner, which we bought. And it was actually quite hot to venture out. We did. It was very, very busy. So if His Grace were to join us in a near edition of his podcast, and he was to, in his graciously grace-like way, ask us for our feedback.
Well, that's done it already, mate.
I might say it's quite busy. I'm not quite sure how to get around that because a lot of people want to go. It is the most extraordinary thing.
Do it for 7 days.
It might be do it for a few more days.
Yeah.
So you can sort of see a bit more of it. While we're on the subject of amazing events, and it is an amazing event, can I just briefly discuss RIAT, the Royal International Air Institute? Because that is sort of the aviation version.
I'm more interested in that, frankly.
It's sort of the aviation version of Goodwood. And I think for people like us, if you're into cars and V12s and old Formula One cars and amazing stuff, you love the sound of aircraft going batshit crazy. So RIAT this year, it's at RAF Fairford Hill every year. It's an amazing coming together of air forces and people of the world. They had a struggle this year, I think, because I don't know if you're watching that program on the television called The News. There's quite a lot of stuff going on in the world around us. So quite a few air forces didn't bring stuff because they were probably busy doing their day job somewhere else. But it's still wonderful. This flying space is amazing. Old Battle of Britain stuff. Modern stuff, F-18s, F-16s, Typhoons, amazing.
35 was there.
Say again?
The 35,
F-35
F-35
wasn't there. It was static but not flying, which is slightly disappointing. And there wasn't an F-15 flying. So if you're a spotter like me, and actually Neil, then not seeing an F-35 or an F-15 flying, ripping the sky to shreds is a bit of a miss. But some of you might recall last year, I got quite worked up and excited by the Turkish Air Force display team in F-16, Soloturk. And the commentator adds to the excitement by saying, "Can you hear that noise? Do you hear that noise? That's jet noise. That's the sound of freedom." Funnily enough, he wasn't there this year. And if you Google Soloturk on YouTube, you'll discover why. He sort of nearly shunted it sometime later last year in another public display. I suspect he's still on the naughty step. But having seen that, it felt like the Polish Air Force had said, "Hold my beer." Because
was it F-16?
Yeah. If you Google RIAT Polish F-16,
I did.
You'll see what I'm talking about. So
it's the new F-16.
Yeah. There was, as a result of lots of changes over the years, the air display is now kept some way back from what's called the flight line, which is the edge of where the crowd is. In theory, no more than 200 feet. And all of their displays are evaluated by the regulators and the air traffic controllers to make sure that they're safe and they're blah, blah, blah. As the Polish F-16 was getting ready to take off in the runway, they patch you into all that sort of stuff. The only words that I could hear from this quite excited sounding sort of garble was "Tiger, tiger, tiger." And I thought, he's obviously going to do something. So he shredded this guy. And he had one big, like 9G maneuver, a big, flat, vertical turn. And he basically went over the crowd line. He went right over our heads, I think less than 200 feet in the air. It was the best moment of my life. It was just so exciting. The crowd went berserk because it's why we're all there. It's why you go to Goodwood. You want to see, Travis Pastrana bending that ridiculous Subaru with leaning over and just toppling over and just scrabbling. You go to RIAT.
Alain Prost, probably the #1 Formula One driver ever.
And Alain Prost, just the greatest Formula One driver. So I suspect the poor Polish pilot got a bit of a bollocking when he landed. But, sir, from all of us who were there, we salute you.
There is something amazing about when you get up close to a fast jet and you're privileged enough to see them go and do the acrobatic and aerobatic stuff. I mean, the original, first time I saw a Eurofighter was Goodwood, actually, when it sort of come over and do something utterly absurd. And they have stunt planes, but when you saw a proper plane designed to kill people, it looks a bit different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The first time I really felt one was James Cameron, who's the guy that now runs Mission Motorsport.
Tank slider.
Just after he retired from running around in tanks, he invited a couple of us down to that day they used to have on Salisbury Plain, where it's used as a sales day, but I gather also to use up ammunition that's about to go out of date. So they two birds, one stone. So there's load of. It looked like a feature film. It looked like the Cannibal Run. There were people with Arab headdresses on over there being sold to, and there was us over on the left giggling. And they just shot bigger and bigger things, and they had a very plummy voiced public school boy who was doing the commentary.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. You just spot the snipers. All 300 of us sat on these old wooden grandstands, going. And the guy was. It was like A Few Good Men. I'm a sneaky bastard, sir. One of those. He's basically done that and crawled up to about 3 feet away from you. And at the very end, they had a Apache come over and just loose off and destroy something. We were watching it, thinking that is incredibly powerful. And then there was I remember this phrase. And if that doesn't work, we could display what we call a show of force. Now you all know what that is, but of course we didn't know that there were two Eurofighter Typhoons coming from behind us at about 100 feet that came straight over and buzzed you from behind. And I've never felt energy like it. The whole grandstand shakes. You just, if you lived in a cave, you'd get out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah,
it was horrific. As a show of power, show of force. Manish, Goodwood, were you there or not?
No, I wasn't there this year. I have to admit, I've never been to the Festival of Speed. I've been to the revival and I've been to the members meeting, but I've not done FOS. And I have to say, though, both of those events were easily the best car events I've ever attended. I mean, for various reasons. I mean, what I really loved about both was there was almost a sense that whether you've got the right pass or you don't have the right pass, no one in a way cares. No one bothers anyone. It's just a really, it's just a really lovely few hours, and that I don't get a sense of any urgency, and that for me is a sense, is a great day out when you don't feel. I mean, perhaps at the Festival of Speed, if you want to see Mr. Prost drive an MP44 up a hill, you better make sure you're. Exactly, you're there on time.
We certainly would.
Yeah.
But there's just, I think what I'm saying is there's just so much to do. It's almost impossible to miss out on something because it is just such a big deal. Having said that, last year, I was very in love with that beautiful 1989 and there's 89 and 90 Ferraris, the John Barnard F189, F190. And last year, Gerhard Berger was due to drive his F189, I think, both days. And we were going up the second day, and I got a phone call from him when we were about 20 minutes away saying, unfortunately, I won't be driving the car. There's a technical problem. And when we got there, we found out that he'd floored it the day before and blown the gasket. That was that. It wasn't going out the next day. I mean, Gerhard only knows, he's definitely from the Nigel Mansell school of driving a car very, very hard. But I remember last year we also saw we saw them in anger. We saw the Gordon Murray T50s. He had 3 of them in a tent, and there was one actually out on the track. And that was, it was quite an exciting thing to see.
They were all there at Festival of Speed. Dario was driving them, and
really?
Up there. I mean, the funny thing about all of those events, and my wife came with me, which was super. But when I say to her, "How do you feel about Goodwood?" She said, "Darling, I love you dearly, but it's always the same." And I'm like, "That is the fucking point."
Yeah. We know what we're getting.
I don't want it to be any different. That's the point. Everything else in my life gets fucked up and changed. Those things, the fact that they're always the same, are why they're great.
Yeah. Takes the worry out.
I think it's a fascinating event, the way that it's evolved. I think in some respects, it's a bit the way I objected to Max Verstappen being objectified as a role model has a comparison here, because I think it was Goodwood, but it became the only place where we could all go and worship the things that we love when they're new. There was no British motor. If there was a British motor show in the NEC, I'd go every year. We all would, wouldn't we? They tried that thing in London, that didn't work, and so it's become. I think when it started to become a bit more of a motor show, it lost its appeal a bit for me. I still don't really see the point in driving moderately powerful everyday cars up the hill. I'd sort of leave that alone, really. But I love the racing cars. I really love the racing cars, and I do like some of the hypercars as well.
Yeah.
It is a great event to go to if you've got little ones, but it is very busy now. And I do agree with Manish. It's pretty meritocratic because you can go anywhere. If you get Drivers Club, you're very lucky because that's spectacular because you'll find yourself basically watching Jackie X eat a flan, which is always something that's going to make you giggle. But that's you can't really buy your way into that.
You can't.
But I have such fond memories of going there with my little ones until I got a certain job on television, at which point it became quite difficult to move around. But we'd always go out and find where the motocross bikes were jumping around, go to the field where Porsche would skid you around in a Cayenne. One year, Honda bought all their small enduro and baby motocross bikes, and the kids could just ride around them. You could basically pay
Amazing.
Yeah.
It was, honestly, it was like the best agricultural show, if you know what they're like in the UK, mixed in with a motor show.
I think one day you only see 30%. If you walk around and do 20,000 steps, you see 30% of it.
Yeah.
It's that big. You really should do 2
I
days.
also think, and I feel strongly that we should be patriotic on this podcast. If you had to list 10 things that we've got in this country that no one else has got, I'd say Goodwood on a summer's day when you're stood on Lord March's lawn and there's cars screaming past you with hay bales. I'm not sure anyone else has got that. I think at times I've been a bit down on it because it was a bit busy, but actually, you know what? The Goodwood team, they know exactly what they're doing.
Very,
They're
very well.
fantastic.
Brilliant job.
And do you know what? I haven't been for a while. I'll go next year. I'll go next year and I'll do a few selfies. Right. So we were about to talk about the Audi R8, I think, but I just tell you, I've had an interesting day today. So I woke up last night. I walked back past my E28 M5, which is parked up on the street here in Bristol, and I walked past it with my kids, and they both went, "That's his favourite." It's weird, isn't it? That's the one he likes the most, even though it looks like an old taxi. Then we all sort of walked around it and admired it and went, "I've had it for 19 years." So when I woke up this morning, went out with them again and go for a dog walk, and it wasn't there. That feeling in the pit of your stomach. I've had a few. We've all had cars stolen, I'm sure. I really don't. I don't like it at all, even if it's something I'm not attached to. But this thing, I'm attached to. So I put something up on the interweb straight away, and once I'd done that and sorted my little ones out, I walked down to Bridewell Police Station in Bristol and reported the theft. Then I phoned up the insurance company, all of which is it's just time out of the day, isn't it? And you're thinking, I'm not seeing that again. So then if you're like me, you start the mental preparation of let's get used to this being lost. It's gone, and also remind yourself that most of the people outside of the podcast won't understand why you're so upset. So you can't really share it with them. I do think that binds people that really love cars.
Yeah.
That when they blow up, or they get lost, or they get stolen, or somehow however they leave your life, you're left a bit bereft in a way that's very difficult to explain. Because quite understandably, normal people go, "That's an inanimate object. How on earth could you be connected to it?" But I'm telling you that I'm more fond of that car than I am most human beings. And I have a huge number of memories of my kids growing up in it and all the other stuff that comes with cars that you are connected to if you're someone that, I say this absolutely openly, falls in love with cars. And so I was a bit broken. And I didn't, just want to get on and see if I could find it. Because I do believe if you work quickly, you can. That means you've got to sit and look at your phone. So I looked at my phone and a message popped in. And I obviously can imagine I had a few messages. Some mostly helpful, some usual unhelpful ones. Why you'd send someone a shitagram on a day like that, I don't know. But it reminds us there are all sorts out there. And this one message just came from a bloke called Lee saying, "I'm stood looking at your M5 with a phone number."
Magic.
So I phoned it, and Lee went in the really lovely Bristol accent. He went, "I'm here." Because I came back from work this morning. I walked past it. I drove past it, and I thought, that's a bit weird. I don't obviously see those around here. Well, I haven't seen one of those for a long time. And then I happened to see your Instagram. So I went back to it and saw it was that number plate. And Lee said, "I'll wait with it until you get here." So I thought, well, I haven't got any muscle here. I'm quite little. Put a golf club in the back of the car, put the dog in the car. He can look quite scary, and drove off, having arranged for some other people to come down and meet me there. Lee stayed there whilst we waited for someone to get the car. It's a bit of a mess. They've gone in through a window. They've smashed the door lock. They've ripped the ignition. The whole steering column's broken, smashed. Scaffold pipe in the back where they've done it all. It was very targeted. So, and I have to say, I have to commend the thief on some really nice pliers work, some really good wire stripping, and he's created a little space where he can turn the ignition valve, which is ripped on the other side of the steering column. Neat work, Mr. Thief. I have to say, quite nice. But fuck you, we got it back. So anyhow, we think as it was leaving, they turned up. There might be a bit of afters, but the reason I'm doing this very publicly is if I'm dead by Friday, then they've come and hit me around the head with a bit of pipe because they were angry. But if that happens, it was going to happen anyway, wasn't it? But it does. I think the other piece of emotional algebra one has to do once you've had a car stolen is that, and this is pragmatic, do I want it back? Because we all know when you've had a car stolen, it's probably not going to come back quite the same. And it might feel that the space is being violated. Often when people's houses are burgled, they find it very difficult to reconnect with the house, don't they? So I thought about this. I thought, well, do I want to just, do I just get the insurance money? It's insured for decent money. Do I get the insurance money and I get another one? And it took me about 10 seconds to realize that wasn't the case, because that wouldn't be my M5, would it? This is my M5 that I've had for a long time. And so I'm really, really, I feel blessed that I've got it back. I feel very, very lucky. We're not always lucky, but I really was lucky today to get that back. There might be some complications after the event, but we'll see what happens. If I'm not here on Friday, they got me. But I'm very glad that we got the car back. It's going to take quite a bit to make it look right. In fact, we might struggle because there's some bits I'm sure that aren't replaceable because you can't get them anymore. But the late great Alan Clark would often leave this as patina. So do I just leave the cowling off the steering column just with a fair bit of metal because that's the way the car is now?
No.
I think you need to make it good and not be reminded of the unpleasant moment that's come and gone.
And with that, yeah, I think so.
The insurance company, obviously, their duty is to put it back to the lovely condition.
I'm not losing my no claims over a steering column cowl, I can assure you.
Well, I don't know how much it will cost to fix all that.
Probably quite a lot. But it's been I got back from recovering the vehicle about 5 minutes before we started, so that's why I'm even worse on the agenda than usual. But it's been a really interesting sort of mini emotional roller coaster, because you sort of start with the loss, then I've sort of gone through it with you there, but now I'm sitting here thinking, I'm just really glad I got it back. That's all I really wanted, and I think the insurance people were quite surprised when I said I don't want that anymore. I don't want another car. I want my car. That's my car. I want my old pair of shoes. They're molded to my feet, thanks. So yeah.
Well, Lee is the hero.
Well done, Lee.
Lee,
definitely.
Lee's an absolute legend. He was just basically strolling about. As he left, you went to see him, mate. So I'm working out what I'm going to get Lee. He likes his cars, Lee does. So I think we'll be finding a way of spoiling him in some way.
He's one of us.
So
Chris, is that the kind of...
To everyone that replied to me on social media, and there are thousands of you who've replied, thank you so much. And someone sent me a really interesting note a minute ago, because that's why I've been a bit distracted, because my phone's pinging a bit, saying, you're very lucky that you have a network because of what you do for a living, of people that can find this out. Is it possible that we could start another network, that you could have an app or a facility where you typed in a number plate and people looked out for it? And it was, and if you're part of our gang of the broader car enthusiasts, you get pinged up with a little notification on your phone saying D234 DWP is missing.
Yeah.
If you see it, is that something that could that be created, do you think?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah.
Can you imagine if you geolocate that as well? So what you do is effectively you say Bristol area, this is where it's missing, and the kind of community in the Bristol area, everyone gets it. But the Bristol area get it as, I don't know, red instead of a green. Everyone gets it all over the place, so they can just kind of look out. I think it's a great idea. If anyone out there is really techie, obviously there's no money in it, but who cares? It'd be a great service. Let's see if we can do something. So that's been my day, which has been interesting. So let's move on to
Well, here we go. A car brand that fits its nationality. Um, I'm going to start with this because I'm so convinced by this. Right? No, I've spoken for too long. Actually, fuck me. Neil Clifford, go first.
Well, I'd prepared this last week and then I've forgotten what I was going to say, but I will be able to rewind my brain pretty quickly. In my view, it has to be Mercedes
Ooh.
because I can't think of. I mean, all German cars are quite German, but maybe all cars are quite. Maybe they all have quite a lot of strong DNA. Actually, the more you think about it, whether it's like a thing we make up in our head just because we know Fiat's Italian, somehow we imagine it's very Italian. I'm not sure whether it actually bloody is, but maybe in our head and our little creative minds, we link nationalities with cars anyway. So it becomes, what are those pills that aren't really anything, Manish?
Placebos.
Maybe it is a placebo thing that they're not really. There's not a load of DNA in a Fiat that makes it Italian, but we just think it is. Anyway, Mercedes to me, I mean, it's very serious. It's quite potentially a little bit bland, like the food of Germany. It doesn't ooze. I mean, you could have arguments around. There are some exceptions to this, whether it be 300 Gull Wing or 6.9, but in general, Mercedes in general are quite conservative, quite conservative, maybe I could say, in design. Cautious, bit bloody boring sometimes. From a style perspective, the fonts are always a bit wrong. The cloth's always a bit weird, like a Berlin disco in about 87. There's italics when you don't really want italics on the dashboard. The fonts are all and that mouse thing that's in the middle. Maybe they've got rid of that now. It's it's just all a little bit badly designed, and of course, one won't say Germans design things badly, but I think they struggle with style a little bit. They struggle with reliability. They struggle with engineering prowess. I know it sometimes goes a bit wrong. We can talk about the Mercedes merger or, 996 is all a bit crap versus 993. But in general, you're not going to break down in a German car that often. I've got a number of British cars. I'm always a bit worried that you're not going to get there in a British car. It's not as sturdy. German cars are very sturdy. So for me, if I had to articulate nationality in a car, it probably would be Mercedes for good and bad reasons, really. Maybe a little bit sort of exaggerated my preconceptions of the negativity of Germany. And I'm doing that, for animation and maybe something to talk about. But it's the italics fonts that really get the back of my neck in the wrong place. The fonts are terrible in a Mercedes. But actually, BMW do it really well. So maybe
What about 80s, like a W124?
That's right. They were better. They went a bit wrong in the 90s. They went
I'm thinking 2000s. It was under
2000s.
Yeah.
I mean, that fucking sat-nav system of early 2000 into about 2012, it's terrible. Those horrible animations of the world and the radio, and when they tried, when you're clicking between, music, and it's shocking. So, yeah, go back to the 80s. It was probably all right. I don't know. Was it the Berlin Wall fell down and it all went a bit wrong? I don't know. A bit less German? I don't bloody know.
I'd say a bit less Bruno, probably. I think Bruno's got a lot to do with
Bruno,
it.
yeah. When Bruno retired, it all went a bit tits up, maybe.
Chris Cooper.
So I was at this point prepared to talk about why car suspension has become so firm.
Come on, you could be flexible.
Yeah.
So,
I think years ago when I was first running a management consulting firm, we worked with Eurotunnel. This was mid-90s, just as they were opening. And there was Eurotunnel was the operating company that ran the tunnel and the railway, the car shuttles, and charged a fee to Eurostar for the passenger ones. It was a great British Anglo-French, entente cordiale, Rodney, and all that kind of stuff. And the guy who was the operations director running the railway, who always said to me, it's not a very big job, this. If I was running the Isle of Wight Railway, it would be a bigger railway job than this one. But he was a lovely guy, Richard Morris, who I know is still around. He's a lovely, lovely man who was very, very good to me and very, very witty, interesting man. And he said, shall I tell you what it's like working with the French? I said, go on then. He said, when the French want to buy a car, they'll try every car they can find on the market, and then they'll go buy the French equivalent, because that's what they do. And that got me thinking about when was that national orientation a peculiarly French or German or other thing. And I think for a long time after World War II, it probably was a national thing. And I was telling the story to somebody over the weekend. We all know this, and most people listening to this in the UK will know this. The Mitsubishi car company, when they first started bringing cars to the UK, it wasn't long after World War II. And family memories of World War II, particularly for those who'd been at war in the Far Eastern sphere of activity, probably had, some negative memories of Japanese equipment manufacturers. And Mitsubishi was probably most well known for being attached to that Zero fighter, their Messerschmitt 109, Spit, whatever it was. So when somebody in the UK decided to start importing Mitsubishis to the UK, they didn't call it Mitsubishi UK. They called it the Colt Car Company. And there was a little running horse, Colt thing, like a Mustang type sort of thing.
Yes, I remember.
Based in Cirencester, the Colt Car Company. So the Mitsubishi Starion was the Colt Starion and the Colt Lancer, and it was just one. So at some point, and I think sadly that's kind of gone, because to me,
there was also one curiosity, wasn't there? They had a car called the Colt.
Colt.
One of the models Mitsubishi had was the
Exactly
Colt.
right.
So
I've forgotten that. It's a very good one.
The Colt.
It was the Mitsubishi Colt. That was bugger. We didn't see that one coming. Shit. So the French thing, and my chum Richard, an early school trip, I grew up in Kent, and a bit like Neil, because you sort of were a ferry ride away from France and Portsmouth, slightly longer ferry. But I remember going in the hovercraft over to France.
In a car or little hovercraft?
In a car, in the Hoverloid. So there was Sea Speed, which is like the British rail offshoot. And there was Hoverloid, which ran from Pegwell Bay, not Dover Harbour. It's like the red and white one.
Yes.
And you get on the hovercraft, and we probably got on it in my father's 20-year-old something Vauxhall or Ford. And you arrived in Calais, and you drive to Boulogne or somewhere else. And there were Citroens and Peugeots. I remember distinctly getting in the back of a Citroen DS, which was a taxi, thinking, there is nothing remotely like this in the UK. It's got four wheels, but in no way is it a car like we'd recognise. So for me, perhaps because of that memory, then I think the car brands that I always associate most with, they're only just over the water, but they're not like us, was kind of that French thing. So for me, it was Citroen. And those friends who'd been, because my parents were from a generation who growing up in the war. And for many Brits, particularly Scots like my family, they travelled overseas to what was then, the dying embers of the empire. So a lot of their friends were district officers in Malawi, Zambia, Kenya, whatever, Botswana, which were just approaching their own independence. And they all had French cars because Peugeots were big in Africa. But they all had Peugeots, and they always felt like very different things. So I still have a soft spot for Peugeots and Citroens of the 70s and 80s because they feel so exotic in some respects compared to Fords and Vauxhalls. I mean, they're probably technically no different, and or better or worse. And I kind of lament the loss of that and the corporatization. I mean, when Ford launched the Mondeo, they called it the Mondeo for a reason, a world car. It's the same everywhere. And that sort of 80s into 90s, that pivot, lost a bit. So I think it's a great question because it reminds us that there are national identities that are still meaningful and we can celebrate and share. And so for that reason, I've always gone for the French ones. And I think Peugeot and Citroën, for me, have very happy memories of that. And that's, you can see them at Goodwood and sort of old stuff and racing stuff and so forth. So another reason why I quite like Goodwood, actually. So yeah, Peugeot and Citroën.
Peugeot and Citroën. I love the idea of the Mondeo being a world car. Of course, it wasn't sold in America where Ford is.
Was it the Taurus in the end? Did they kind of base the Taurus? Was it?
Taurus was altogether bigger vehicle.
I thought it was a Granada.
Very different floor plan. Yeah. So, Manish, what about you? Which car do you most associate with which country? That's what we're asking, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think actually for me, it was actually which brand, a car brand. And for me, pre-oil crisis Cadillac is America. And I mean, I've got a little picture here. I don't know, can you see that? This is
yeah.
See that, baby? So it's basically a Coupe de Ville coupe. And it, you know, what was America pre-oil crisis? Like, do you need to go around a corner in America? No, you have a freeway. So I'm not going to worry about stupid things like suspensions and who gives a shit. How do you make it faster? Make the engine bigger. That is all you do. Just make it really, really big. Do you like bumps on your roads? Well, there aren't any bumps on the roads, but if there is a bump on the road, it doesn't matter because the suspension's going to be so soft. You're going to ride it. It's got 400 cows that were hamburgers. They've supplied the leather. Everything in this car is leather. It's got air conditioning. If this thing goes down the road in Britain or France or Tokyo or the middle of Africa, you just go, that's America, don't you? And it's just big. I think they're 18 feet long. And people get new ones every 2 or 3 years because they were the country that cottoned onto finance much, much earlier and made it available to many more people, you know, middle class and upwards. So pre-oil crisis Cadillac, that is the brand.
Now, I agree with everything that's been said here, but I've always felt very strongly that the answer to this question is only one brand. And I'll before I say what it is, I'll explain my thought process. So, the way that cars were most obviously represented in terms of nationality was, if you're our age, through films. And that's where those were most strongly expressed. You know, if you wanted to demonstrate that your baddie in Beverly Hills Cop was a bit Germanic and a bit too well organized, then he was driven around in a Mercedes W126, wasn't he? Of course he was.
Yeah.
That's where. But there were nuances. So you could have chosen a BMW. You could have chosen a Porsche. If you wanted an American baddie that was a bit rogue, it could have been something Mopar. There were different options. But in the 80s and a bit into the 90s, if you wanted to demonstrate a Russian, they drove a Lada. They just drove a Lada. They always drove Ladas. I can't think of a stronger connection between a nationality in film. It was always a Lada. You know, when Bond had to check anything remotely Soviet, it was always a Lada. It was very rarely anything else. It was that shape, that old Fiat shape, Lada. And I think the only other one that you could argue was an even stronger connection was that the moment you moved into East Berlin, it was a Trabi, wasn't it? It was a Trabant. But for me, that just if you any film that went right, we're off to Moscow now. The first shot you'd see would be someone wearing a fucking great big rabbit thing hat, and there'd be a Lada in the first frame. There just would be. To demonstrate we're in Russia, let's put a Lada, and everyone would go, "That's it, it's one of them Russian cars." So it was never a Skoda, always Lada. And having driven a few, do you know what? They were really brilliant cars because they were strong as an ox. Rear-wheel drive, put a fancy twin cam in it. Lovely jubbly.
Yeah. Live rear axle?
Well, it's based on a Fiat 124, isn't it?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. They sold the tooling to them, didn't they?
Yeah.
But they didn't. It seems that seemingly, I suppose, it's because it came later. Because the Fiat 124 didn't last longer than 5 years because it rusted like hell. But I suppose because it's 15 years later, they'd figured out the galvanized steel better.
Yeah.
Or 128. I don't know if it was 124 or
124,
128. 124, I think.
124, yeah.
44, 44 to 42, 44.
40, 45? 40, 45?
So, right, here we go. Oh, Mr. Cooper's had ample chance to talk. He's going to get some more now. So, he is the only person here, as far as I'm aware, that's been to see the Formula One movie. And he wants to tell us a bit about it. Because I've not watched it. And I'm undecided as whether I'm going to go and watch it. So, Chris Cooper, tell me why I should go and watch it.
Quite liked it. I did quite like it. There's a couple of reasons why, a number of reasons why. First of all, it's about our sport. And that's just good. It's just good. They've done the sport bits of our sport, I think they've done reasonably well. Some people so Cameron and I went to see it a couple of Saturdays ago, and we're quite open-minded. And we thought, actually, why don't we just go and see it? Fuck it. Cinema down the road. In fact, Yuki Tsunoda was photographed in the same cinema earlier in the week, bizarrely, just before British Grand Prix. Hemel Hempstead. The test for me, people say, oh, we're too fantastic and too Hollywood. Did we all love Top Gun Maverick?
Yes.
We all love Top Gun Maverick.
Yep.
So Top Gun Maverick had a scene in it, two scenes in it. One early in the film where Tom Cruise, Maverick, is flying some ludicrous rocket-powered shipmobile doing a...
Whoa. That is a real plane.
Okay, it's a real plane. If you're all sitting comfortably, then I'll continue. Which disintegrated at Mach 30 million. And he landed looking slightly singed, but otherwise surprisingly intact. And then later in the film, Maverick and Rooster find an old F-14 that hasn't been run for 1 million years. And there's nobody around to start it. And they take it off from a runway that doesn't exist. Question, is there anything in the F1 movie of equivalent ludicrousness to those two? Nowhere close. Nowhere close. But we all loved Maverick. We looked at that thing. If there'd been something in the F1 film equivalent to the F-14, they'd have found a 1978 Lotus ground effects car in a museum somewhere with the engine
And won the
missing,
Formula One. Yeah.
and gone out and won a race in it.
I'm writing that down. That's actually quite a good idea for a film. Huh?
Yeah. So, and there are bits of it near the beginning when they get him onto the grid and start the race, where just for a moment, it got quite close to conveying the emotion and the heartbeat of what it's like to be in a car. Whether you've done city club racing like me or you've done Formula One, just for a moment, it conveyed that. And I thought that was really, really cool. And you could tell people in the cinema stopped and watched and listened and engaged with and enjoyed it. I won't spoil the ending if you have, because you guys haven't seen it. But I thought it did our sport okay. It didn't have Top Gun cylinders in it, which we all loved in Top Gun. And there was just enough respect for the sport and how the technology works and stuff to say, do you know what? That was all right. I quite enjoyed it. Would I go again? I could see myself going. If it came out on a pay-per-view, I'd definitely pay-per-view and watch it at home. Would I go and watch cinema again? Do you know what? I probably could, just to see it one more time. So it's very, I felt, I went as much an open mind as I could, because I felt it's easy to poo-poo it. They spent all the money in the world. Management tells us whether they're going to make any money out of it. I suspect not. But honestly, I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be, and I enjoyed it. And it's our sport, and I'm pleased that our sport got its 2 hours, 43 minutes in the sun.
I can't really comment on it because I've not watched it. But I tell you what, now you've said that, I will go and watch it.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that's important, because I think you are equally cynical as the rest of us, Mr. Cooper. And if it had been complete waste of time, you'd have
It
told
wasn't.
us.
It wasn't.
No, that's good, really good.
You know,
It's a bit like the Ferrari movie, really, isn't it? Because everyone was a little bit sniffy about that. Frankly, it was great just because it's about cars. It may well be, why would you rather watch a film about, I don't know, kings and queens for the 1850s walking around a lake? I mean, that's
because
shit.
because it might be good. I mean, I don't
No,
know.
that's what you
That's
put.
shit.
That's a shit film. You've got cars in it. It's going to be
Winner.
good.
Well, I've got to reappraise Barry Lyndon, I guess, on the back of that. Can I just two quick things? Just Top Gun Maverick did have one of my absolute favorite moments in a modern film where somebody's just not. Maybe they did think about it, but then put it in. He's flying that F-14 over sort of Russian or whatever airspace, and they're told, beware of the stealth fighters. And it's great because both the stealth fighters show up on his. No, but it's great. They both show up on his 1980s radar, which is one of my favorite moments. He sees them on a radar, but they're stealth fighters. And that would have been such a good cut if you'd just sort of seen the two planes. And I was just going to talk about the box office. This is just the power, I think, of Apple. It'll take us on a very just humor me on this, but the PR for the film is going around saying it's in excess of $200 million and in its budget. I mean, I've heard reasonably reliably that it's in excess of $300 million. I mean, if you remember, they had to contend with COVID. When they came back, all the bloody liveries had changed on the cars, and that's a big continuity error if you're filming as you go along. So there was a lot of reshooting to be done. They embedded for a long, long period of time. And so if you've got a budget over $300 million, Apple don't distribute films. They don't do that. They don't own cinemas. They don't have a distribution company. So actually Warner Brothers distributed the film for them. Well, they don't do that for free. They do that for a fee. And if you're Apple, they do it for a pretty good fee. And you have to, cinemas rent your movie. So the upshot of this is that you take probably $1 in 3 at the box office back to the people who make, the producers, Apple in this case. And so if you've made a movie for say $300 million and you've spent another $100 million in print and advertising, marketing this film, the film's got to make about $1.2 billion at the box office to break even. And the film to date has done $450 million after 3 weeks. I think it will probably get just above $500 million. So even if it gets to $600 million, Apple will get about half their money back. Do they care? No, they don't. And this is the kind of, the segues into, I think the big news this week is that Apple is in the running for the streaming rights for Formula One in the United States. And I think a company that doesn't really mind spending $500 million on a movie and maybe getting half of it back or only 40% of it back might well be in the running for more streaming rights than the United States. I mean, Apple typically do things globally. They don't sort of really geo-block. You can watch MLS in this country. You can watch MLS on your Apple TV around the world. And I really would not be surprised if what we're seeing is just a little bit of coordinated action taking Formula One streaming to Apple. And that's what I wonder, whether there's a kind of bigger play there. I might be completely wrong, but just look at the dots. They line up very well. And Formula One, it's a pretty addictive business. I mean, you saw Brad Pitt saying goodbye to everybody from Ted Kravitz to the tireman at Pirelli.
Mm-hmm.
They embedded well, and it's an amazing. You've been to the grid, you've been in a paddock. It's a live place, that. And I imagine maybe the feedback Apple are getting is, well, it's good having Messi. Yeah, it's all right. Good having these old football players playing football in America. Is it? Why don't we just go for the real thing, like now, like the real Lewis Hamilton? Why don't we get the real Charles Leclerc? Why don't we get the real Lando? In other words, completely contemporary, at the coalface, sharp end sport. Get it on their station. Get it on. a great thing to do. I'd be thrilled actually if it went to Apple.
It's very interesting hearing you talk about the numbers, Manish, because it reminds me that maybe the older you get, the more you feel that because you want to understand the business side of something, that makes you more mature. But as you talked about that, I felt my inner child stand up, because I don't. If you'd asked the 15-year-old me about that, I'd have said I don't care about the numbers. I'm just really pleased someone did it. You know, he'd say, well, you know, the Cannonball Run did that. You know, did any of these things that we love? Did Herbie Goes Bananas smash it at the box office? I doubt it. But actually, I suppose if we think about the general note of positivity that we want to sound on this podcast, as we do, we're lucky that there's an F1 film, you know. And actually, what are the positive knock-on effects of it? Well, first of all, there's a good chance that a whole load of other people are going to become aware how special the motor car is, how special Formula One is. That would never have looked at it unless Brad Pitt was driving a car in it. I suppose it's the bit that I find most difficult is that when a company like Apple decides to spend a load of money around the sport, they're almost deliberately saying, "We're not doing it for you. You know, you're too nerdy, you lot."
That's
So
fine.
you feel a bit. I suppose you think, "Oh God, could they just hold a bit of money back and make something for us? Like give us a 17-hour special on Adrian Newey's wind tunnel work." But frankly, not many people are going to watch
quite
that.
specialist.
Or a podcast.
Or a podcast where people crap on about stuff. So, but I think Manish is right. I think there's ultimately, if there's a chance that there might be some sort of coitus between Apple and Formula One, it's probably not a bad thing for the sport that we love, is it? So, well, I'll tell you what. On the back of that, Mr. Cooper, I'm going to go and watch it.
Well, we've got our new Barry Norman as well. Film 25 featuring.
Sitting on a sofa with his legs crossed awkwardly.
I don't have to go to the cinema anymore now and fall asleep. I can just listen to reviews by our Barry Norman.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, lovely.
The next one is. Oh, we're on to the two-car garage. This is good.
Hold on, I thought you were doing the first in the new series, pre or post.
Oh, yes, well reminded, Manish.
Yeah.
The first. Here we go. Where did I put that?
At the beginning of the agenda we were looking at.
Oh, bollocks to that. I'll make it up. So I suddenly thought that recently I've been toying with pre and post facelift cars and how I feel about them.
Yeah, it's a big question.
I want to put this. I think we can do a few of these. So I'm going to call them pre and post. Okay. So the one we're going to discuss today is, I think, one of the great ones, which is 308 Ferrari versus 328 Ferrari. Neil Clifford seems very keen to discuss this. I'm going to go to him first.
God, this is an hour.
Cheers.
Well,
keep it to these cars. But don't...
Okay, all right. I'm gonna struggle to do that because I've got such a big list.
I know, but they're ones we talk about in future weeks.
I know, but I could at least give me a minute on the overall strategy of
Face. Don't give up future weeks' content.
I'm not going to mention any other cars. Maybe the XK8.
For fuck's sake.
No, all right. No, but the facelift is such an interesting discussion, isn't it? Because clearly, and I've thought deeply about this, not from my emotional connection to cars, but also my very, very successful CEO career and taking the piss, obviously. Clearly, you have to, I suppose, change the look of a car as you go, because you've got to entice not only the buyers that bought your car 3 or 4 years ago, and why would they change and buy another one if it looked the same? So I can understand the engineering updates are normally more successful because, technology changes, you get a bigger engine. We won't discuss 997 on this.
Right.
Okay. All right. I shut up.
Did you get the memo?
But I did.
Because I've definitely not got that agenda, but even I know how to answer this fucking question.
No, I do. Come on. You're very good at answering around the question.
Teasing.
But so you have to change the look of the car. But frankly, in general, most people fuck it up. But it gets fucked up only from a period when you look back. Because obviously at the time, because you're looking at modernity and change, and you're a bit bored of the 308 because it's been around a bit, 4 years, 5 years, and they've done the quattro valve, and they've tinkered with the engine, but it still looks a bit dated now, and the wing mirror looks a bit 70s, and now you want it to look a bit 80s. So when the 328 come out, you're like, oh, I like that. The front is nicer. It's a bit more modern. It's, I don't know, the Targa roof comes off a bit better when you read the review. There's more power in the engine. I want the 328 more than the 308. But then, in the period of time, and maybe growing up and becoming more intelligent as you grow older, you look back and it's always the original one that's the clean. They always basically fuck it up. So now, our good friend JK has just bought the most gorgeous black with tan 308. And you look at that car, I saw the car last week, it pisses all over 328 that now is suddenly languishing in this thing between the original 308 and then into 348 and 355, which I think actually, the more I think about 355, it's overrated. But that's for another discussion.
Overrated, yes or no? A new thread.
I think 308, it's always the original one that pretty much is always the best one. And the tinkering, and I understand the strategic need of tinkering because you've got to induce, owners of 308s, because maybe there's not that many people that can afford a Ferrari. So half your customers have got to come from the people that already bloody bought one. It's a bit like 458 into 488. Now I will be quiet and leave it to someone else. 308, much better than 328 for all of those obvious reasons. The first is always the best.
Right. All I asked you was 308 or 328.
I know. But I had to build a story around it. And I've only spoken for about 10% of the stuff that I've written down.
Brilliant. And do you know what? Of course, as ever, you've explained exactly what I would have said. So, Chris Cooper, what do you think? 308 or 328?
I'm glad my student is coming along so well in his training. I think there's a bit more specifically.
Podcast next week if you keep on like this.
I think there's a bit more specifically about 308 and 328. So the 308, to those of us of a certain age, means only one thing: Magnum. 308 GTS means Magnum, because when you're growing up, whatever it was, 70s or 80s, Hawaii, we'd seen a bit of it in Hawaii 5.0, but that just seemed to be ridiculously exotic and unreachable. Wine forward a few years and you'd seen a bit more of the world through books and television. So we sort of knew roughly where Hawaii was. And then this Thomas Magnum character appeared with this English, not English butler, and he's Rick and the guy flying the little bird, the Hughes 500 helicopter. Everybody know what a Hughes 500 helicopter is because it was a guy who flew it around Hawaii at 50 feet off the waves. So
that was good.
The 308 said Magnum. And the 328, when it originally appeared, actually I was torn because it wasn't Magnum. And I felt like I'd lost something of the identity of that with 328. But it did look a bit more modern and a bit more rounded. And now when you look at it, it looks heavy. It looks heavy, excessive. And there is something in that. We've talked about this before, and I think one of the reasons why facelifts often don't work, but the reason why there is a second version of this series is because some haven't. Some haven't. So some have worked.
Don't go there.
Some have worked. Come back in a later week.
Got a few that have.
But it's because marketing people got involved.
And the fucking journalists.
And they spoilt it.
Because journalists get basically bribed to write positive things about new cars because they all go and get pissed in fucking Switzerland.
And I've enjoyed presenting this podcast with Neil Clifford, but
one of you has to go. So,
no, but it's that's business, isn't it? You've got to keep the journalists happy. You need them to write positive shit about the new car. the customers go, "Oh, that sounds a bit better. I'm gonna change it." It's all it's all commercial
There's more
stuff.
to it than that. Manish, what do you think?
I just remember the King Kamehameha Club. I wanted to join it so badly. It just looked so luxurious, didn't it? Isn't that where that's Rick ran it, didn't he?
Yes, I think he did.
Yeah.
And the helicopter was a Hughes 500, I
Hughes
think,
500,
as
doesn't
well.
bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Great little machine. I actually, even at the time, didn't like the 328 upgrade. I thought the 308 for exactly those reasons. It was Magnum's car, but there was something so sleek, so pretty about it. And the 328, I just didn't like its mouth. The grille was just
The
too
grill.
big. It was too silver. And one other little detail that I thought looked beautiful on a 308 that the 328 just got rid of. If you remember on the 308, there was a grille behind the pop-up lights. So when you look down, it just broke up. It just broke up that bonnet beautifully. The 328 didn't have that grille, so it sort of had acres of quite flat bonnet. In fact, even the grille just behind the B pillar was a bit more. It was a bit longer, a bit thinner on the 308 than the 328. So the other thing is the interior. If you look, the 308 had that 308 dashboard. Two big dials. It was all sort of silver, whereas the 328 was more like a sort of 80s
It was a bit
launcher,
Fiat.
wasn't it? It was black with orange with those big rocker switches. So I the 308 every single day, and I would say JK's 308 with the tan is Lola's little brother because she's so pretty.
Yeah.
Everything about it. It's such a compact car. When you see a 308 in real life, I saw one a couple of weeks ago, a red one, just around the corner from here. They're small,
Tiny.
gorgeous, compact, beautiful thing. So 308 every day of the week for me.
Interesting one, this. I think it does point to the core genius of car designers and car design, because I think the facelift serves its purpose on every level. What it does is it provides contemporary owners and journalists the chance to reappreciate a car. It's normally when the facelift comes, you're already a bit bored with that car. You might like the way it looks, but normally the team involved is talented enough to give it a nip and a tuck and a tweak so that you, the contemporary you, thinks it's better. And that's because it's in the context of being a modern car. So if your 3 Series is 2 years older than the current C-Class or 190, it will look a bit dated because even Luddites like me spot the way that a little bit 2 years in design language, you get to a new phase. What's so clever in retrospect about facelifts is that, of course, when the facelift is no longer new, it's not viewed as being contemporary or new. You look at it as a historical object, the same as the other one, and you just judge it as an original piece of design, which is unfair. But as I agree with Neil and Manish and Chris, almost always the original design looks better. It just does.
Not
when you look
always.
at it,
What should come back to?
I use the word almost. I think what it is interesting is that quite often, for 2 or 3 years after the facelift, I think the facelift looks better.
That's right.
And then 10, 15 years later, I go back, BMW especially. Like, I thought the facelift E39 looked miles better. Now I think an early 528 is the best looking one by a mile.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And all too often, particularly in the 90s and noughties, the facelift meant going from yellow indicators to clear indicators. They use lots of quite cheap tricks to make you think the car looked more modern.
Yeah.
Removing chrome trim, that sort of stuff. And you look back and actually they don't. But for me, in the context of the 308 and the 328, when the 328 came out, I thought it was the best looking car on the road.
Wow.
Just to demonstrate what sort of a school I went to, one of the teachers at my school had a new one. And there you go. And I remember seeing it and thinking that's the coolest looking car ever. And I saw a 308 soon afterwards in a garage, and it looked horribly dated. And that bit of black sort of integrated bumpery thing that came out the front, I thought that looks crap compared to the really clever impact bumper on the facelift. But actually, looking back, it's cumbersome.
It's like jeans, though, isn't it? When we all went through that mid-90s bootleg, and you look back at the skinny leg or the flare or whatever, you're like, the old jeans look so terrible. But then when you suddenly look at those bootlegs from about 98, you're like, what the fuck was I wearing that for?
Aren't
All
jeans
frayed at the back because they're too long. Terrible jeans.
But we went from the beautiful Campagnolo alloy wheel to that sort of almost Testarossa style wheel on the 308. Sorry, 328, which at the time I thought made the other wheel look so dated. Look back now, Jesus Christ! What were we thinking? But I suppose that the facelift serves its purpose. What it does is it allows the car to move on and to sell more, but it also, in being the facelift, means that it's going to at some point allow the original design to be celebrated, because the facelift is basically the fucker that goes off in the 3,000 meters at a hair's pace, drags everyone round, and then just knocks off at the end and lets everyone win. For me, the 25-year life cycle, without the facelift, you wouldn't appreciate how great the original design was.
But do you think that's a very good point there? Do you think that is discussed at the time, though? Do you think? I
think yes. I think the guy, whoever does the facelift, is almost a sacrificial lamb. They know that they're going to have a brief peak in popularity, but they know full well actually that unless it's a very rare situation, their work will be remembered as slightly messing up an original design. I think they know it when they do it.
Could you give us a hint of one that you think does improve, just to whet the palate for the next time?
997 from 996.
A 456M compared to a 456.
Yeah,
6M.
I'm still stuck with jeans. Aren't jeans all the same? I know I'm stuck in Philistine's corner in the cultural desert. Can I just say one more thing about the 308 that I think helped or hindered why we felt the 328 was the one? Right at the end of the 308, it was seen as a poor relation, even in itself. It had gone fuel injection. There was a 2-litre version, federalized bumpers, all those kind of things. It was dying an ignominious death. It didn't go out with dignity. And then the 328 came along and said, thank God. We look back to is JK's 308, is it a glass fibre one or a later one?
I don't think it's a Vetrocina, no. I think it's a steel car.
Yeah,
you look at they're just beautifully simple. So I think the 308 is an interesting example because it suffered extra indignities before the 328.
Yeah, 76 is the fiberglass car and the early car. Yeah. Well, I think this is just a magnificent discussion. And
you've asked me to give you an example of one, right?
Yes.
I've heard there were not the same. 996, 997 are different models of car, completely different models of car. That's not a facelift. So, but I do believe.
Oh, that's a top
conversation. You've got to go 996.
It's not, is it? I mean, it's a different name. It's a different model of car.
Okay. I look forward to that one.
I'll get the people on that did the cars if you want, and they'll say they have a different Bauer number. They're not the same.
I'm being slightly obtuse.
I say that in the modern era, I think the 991 Porsche was really successfully facelifted, and I look at them both now, and I think the second generation 991 looks really good to my eyes. So that's.
But don't we always go? Oh, he's got the turbo. He couldn't afford the GTS 3.8. Because they're cheaper now. It's not as good. Everyone's searching for this manual Gen 1 GTS.
Oh, I know, but I suppose I'm talking about the aesthetic. It's an aesthetic.
Just a look of it. Yeah. Just a poor look.
I think all too often when someone alters these are around the details, aren't they? It sounds to me it's a very, very difficult exercise because you're told you can play with the indicator, you can play with the headlight, you can maybe play with a bit of the interior, but really the facelift it must be an incredibly difficult thing. The facelift consultant must be quite a clever person because it must be so frustrating. They're not saying here redesign it, start again, different shapes of metal 997, or what they're saying is you just got to play around the edges.
And you got £3.50
when I see Gen 2 991, I always, when you go around the back and you see those two single exhausts, you go, oh, bless him.
Really, you're the opposite to me. I like the way
I'm
that looks.
Opposite because I don't own one, but if I was going to, I'd want GTS Gen 1 manual with the 4 exhausts at the back, not the 2.
Really? Well, there you go. Yeah. It's all totally subjective. Right, let's do the two-car garage. Here we go.
I've got no idea what it is this week, so
No, I think
Well,
you
I'll
do.
tell you what. We'll go. You go last. Give you a few minutes. I've been furiously looking at current classic because I was a bit busier earlier. So here we go. You and your partner are in your mid-20s and in between jobs with the summer ahead of you. You decide you're going to head to Europe for a few weeks in a camper van or something else you can both sleep in. Critical point one, Mr. Cooper. You can both sleep in it, right? So that you can see the sights and avoid those crippling summer hotel bills. It's something that you plan to do again. So it's a keeper. When you return, you want a little coupe to see friends on weekends. Until the end of the summer, when the work begins again. Choose reliably and have some fun. Budget £40,000.
I have got this one.
Have you?
Because the first thing I noticed about it was, in fact, our producer said this, who's in his early 20s, and said, Manish, could you provide him with some careers advice? Because by the time he's in his mid-20s, not far away, he wants to be able to take the summer off and have a spare £40,000 kicking about to buy 2 cars.
He
Podcast
needs
for
to be a
people.
tech. He needs to be a tech bro, is what he needs. He can add a 0 to that, can't he?
This happened to me.
Yeah, you did this, didn't you?
Exactly. I was inspired by Neil,
You
actually.
can have 40 grand,
Okay.
though, to...
Well, no, but 17 grand, which is what I had, isn't it? It's the same as
Okay,
40 grand
all
in
right.
Like
1993.
50, I'd imagine, yeah.
Neil, you can go first then.
Right, let me give everyone some advice. If you're planning to do this, and go on to the lovely Classic Car and Classic app, avoid all the fucking Volkswagen air-cooled shitters
Tick.
Oops.
because they look fantastic, and I've done it. I've driven around Australia in one of those, and of course, when you look back, a bit like the facelift, you forget all the bad news of these things, don't you? Because it looks cool in photographs, but they are a bit shit if you actually want to sleep in them and travel places because they're slow and there's no bloody room. So you'll look cool, but they're a bit crap. So when it comes to camper van, my advice on camper vans is you have to be more sensible. You have to choose something that has got 5 gears, that has got air conditioning ideally, particularly if you're traveling across Europe now, which is very, 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 very hot. You need a bit more space and a bit more comfort and maybe even a sat nav. So that would be my advice for someone that's actually done this for 2 years of their life. So I've gone and bought this lovely T5. It's what year is it? 2015. 75,000 miles. We'll obviously put the link up because that car you could actually comfortably drive from Milan to Rome in one day and not feel dead, exhausted, heat stroke, wanting to kill your partner, broken leg with the clutch, everything else that is those lovely artistic camper vans. So that I think that was, what was it, 24 grand. Yeah, 24 grand. So, I've spent a good 65% of my budget on the camper van, but that is also good advice. So then I'm buying a coupe, and presumably we're not selling the camper van. So now I've only got 15 grand managed. I've got to keep the camper van, right?
Exactly. 2
I
cars.
did go down the bollocks. By the time you own a camper van, you want to sell it after about 3 months because they're actually a pain in the bloody arse and you will just want to go into hotels. But anyway, I've kept it. The unspoken hero of coupes for less than 10 grand, and it's not a Porsche Boxster, and it's not even an MX-5, because of course you have to go cabriolet, is the Fiat Barchetta. And actually,
Oh,
it's one of the prettiest little cars. Look at that. It's like a tiny little mini Corvette. And very Italian because it's a Fiat, and therefore, all cars are very Italian or German or whatever. But actually, this one from Mr. Speedlux, who actually has some really cool old cars, and there's some of them are actually not that shit. Look at that! Look,
Nice wheel.
that is, and I don't remember this car, but I'm reliably informed in the ad that was the launch colour of that car in orange.
no.
And that is 7,995. Great little car. And then I've got, I don't know, 5 grand left to fix the camper because it's bound to go wrong.
Yeah.
The launch
We'll
colour
let
of
you
that...
off because it specifically says coupe in the description. So
I know, but
if you give me, no, it's fine. Just give me 2 weeks in your 6.9, and we're all good.
yeah, that's okay. Okay, if it's a coupe, I'll buy an MGF.
There you go.
Which was
That's a
the
roadster.
BBC.
That's a roadster as well. It's the same problem.
Yeah.
Right. So, Chris Cooper.
Yeah, it is.
So, I think if you were going to go across Europe, you want to do it properly. You want to be off the beaten track. So I've done this properly. I've looked at the auction site. This is on auction.
Oh, I did that, but that's full of those bloody air-cooled things.
Except
You found.
for this.
I saw that.
How is that under 40 grand?
Was it more than 40 grand though?
No,
I thought
see,
that.
I reckon that would, so it's on auction. I reckon that would go.
I see.
What is it? Can you describe what it is?
It's a 1977 forward control.
Is it?
It's a 1974 control camper conversion. So it probably,
28 grand.
probably hasn't got air conditioning, but I suspect that'll be the least of its problems. But it's just brilliant. It's brilliant. It's the right colour. It's got the right wheels. There is nowhere you couldn't go. When the road ends,
Yeah.
your adventure starts. So that's
good.
kind of, I'd get one of those. And a bit like Mr. Clifford, I've used the definition of a coupe. I've taken that liberally. So, and I found, and I actually have to think, because when the soft top on this is up, it's a pretty good coupe. My
Yes.
phone is still regenerating it. It's a Mercedes CLK 320 Roadster,
First shape.
first shape.
Yes.
So it is it's 2002.
Compressor.
So it's facelift. So it's got the white indicators in the wing mirrors.
Yes.
You know, it's then.
What money have you got left over for welding?
I think there might be. It's summer, so the rust isn't going to get worse. No, I think these are two great cars. If I was a upwardly mobile in my mid-20s and had 40 grand, that's what I would do. I would generally do that.
Okay. Yeah, we
good.
like those. We like those. Manish.
Well, I mean, I'm going to upset Neil. But I mean, I found this.
Yeah.
Do that? No, just let me tell you the quirk with this lovely 75 Volkswagen camper van is it was restored in 2020, including a new gearbox. And I reckon it's a Type 2, so I think you probably get it for £12,500. That I was having a little look, it'll be somewhere like that. So it
Like
leaves you.
the new Manish who goes out, he's getting used to the market, estimating price. I love it.
It-
Quite
it's
Manish, so I worry about the auction. I don't know what that's going to go for. So now he's working. I love it. It's great.
I've become quite addicted, actually. You guys, you have spotted the fact that I do love. I mean, one could spend weeks doing this, couldn't we? Or years in your cases.
We
or years
fucking
to come
do.
in.
The rest of the
I
time.
know, that's what I'm saying.
What else do you think we do?
Yeah, I haven't got any fucking friends.
Overrated, that friend, Mark.
That's why I have to cook you guys dinner twice a year.
But otherwise, we wouldn't eat.
I have no friends. Huh?
We're talking about that at the live podcast. We're not talking about
Oh,
that
okay.
now.
Yeah. So, and look at this. Okay. I think these are quite reliable, but there's a lovely Triumph TR6 on the auction site, pre-bids at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think you'd get that for about £20,000. It's got less than 70,000 miles on it. It's been beautifully looked
Probably
at.
good. We've got one.
Nice little
It's the thing that Lynn has had longer than we've been together, longer than any other possession. She's had a TR6 for 30 years.
They are
They are
gorgeous
pretty.
things,
Very
aren't they?
pretty.
They're gorgeous
Great noise.
things.
On a grammatical point, are miles considered to be a singular entity? So is it less than 70,000 or fewer than 70,000 miles?
It is. I think
the
it can
same,
be
isn't it?
either.
There we go.
All right.
That,
There we
I
go.
think it can be
Answer,
either.
answer this in the comments, please, because I'm a bit. I less or
I'm with
fewer.
you on that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I want a view on that. Okay, nice one, Manish. We like both of those. So, as ever, I have completely and utterly shattered you here. I'm done so much better. So, first of all, you're going around Europe. You're not really, because you don't want to go. I love going to Holland and all the Luxembourgy places. Great. You don't want to go to Germany really either. You go to Germany to watch motor racing. You don't go to a camper van. You're going to be in France. France is the biggest country, and actually it is the best for camping and motorhomes. There's the most accommodating. So you're going to be in France. So what you're going to do is you're going to buy a Phase 1 Renault Espace.
Ah,
All the
they are
seats,
cool.
you can take all the seats out and
Okay.
leave them by the side of this bass at night under a tarpaulin. No one's going to nick them, and you can stay in there and do whatever you want. And you'll go and find places to do a blute and the other things that you need to do. That there is €3,000, and it's fresh as a baby. It's only done 329,000 kilometers, so it's the diesel one. I've heard
Running.
they'll do at least 400 on a gearbox.
Yeah.
You've got lots of money left when you come back now to buy, wait for it, a coupe. A coupe, written down here, is a car of 2 doors and a fixed roof.
Picky.
You're right, Ish.
A white on red Mondial.
Oh,
£34,000. What could
mid
go wrong?
20s. You're in
White
your mid
on
20s and you're driving a white Ferrari.
White on red. So
Good. It's a white Ferrari is good.
white. Look
Where
how,
is that
and
car?
also,
Where is that
we all
car?
thought that the QV looked better, but look how fresh a piece of design that is there.
Yeah. I always like that.
It's really
I've always liked
good.
Mondial.
So there you go, Mondial and a Spas, and ultimately you leave this Spas over there, and you can pick it up next year when you go back to do some more travelling. So,
Very clever.
some music. Who would like to go first? Manish, what music have you got?
Because I used to love all those Buddha bars, used to listen to them all the time. And there's a guy who did a few of the modern ones called Arno Elias. And there's a stunning song called El Corazon. A woman sings very, very passionately in Spanish. And it's pacey, it's ambient, it's fantastic. Arno Elias, El Corazon.
Oh, no, I'm writing this down. Elias, I'll listen to that later. Mr. Cooper.
Hard to walk out of Riyadh and the International Air Tattoo and seeing particularly the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, which is not just Battle of Britain, it's the whole of World War II, and not have playing in your head the song by Eric Coates, Dam Busters March.
Oh,
There we go. Neil Clifford.
I was listening to Radio 6 the other day because I'm very intellectual.
Is your radio, broken?
6 is the best. It is the best.
God, you culture vultures. Come and join me in Philistine's Corner.
No, look, we should talk about radio stations. Not now, obviously, because we've run out of time, but we really should, because Radio 2 should be so much better than it is. So therefore I have to go to 6, and sometimes I like 6, sometimes I don't. Anyway, and they played this song by Neil Young, which is called My, Hey, Hey. And actually, it's really good. And I'm not like a big Neil Young knowledgeable chap. I don't really follow him like I do John Denver, or it's not my thing. But actually, I listened to that song and I thought, fuck me, that's really good. And it was quoted in Kurt Cobain's Suicide, which there's some good news to end on. But it's that good lyrically. It's really, really good. There you go.
I'm going to go and probably have a shandy bass later on, and I'm going to toast a man called Lee,
Yes,
who
we'll
made
all
my
do
day
that.
rather better. So, and I also think there's only one song for me, and that's "Lucky Man" by The Verve.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
song.
great song.
Great
song
man.
for me.
What a song!
I am a very lucky man because I've been reunited with something very dear to me. On that note, on that positive note, let's look into all of us trying to create an app. So if your car gets nicked, you can post a number plate and people can look out for it. That sounds like, or maybe that facility is already there on Instagram.
And they can send you a reward.
Yes. But to the network of people that helped me today and showed kindness, thank you so much. So on that note, it's goodbye from myself, Neil Clifford, Chris Cooper, and Manish Pandey.